Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hello, this is Ed Cohen in San Diego, California, and you're back on Global TV Talk Show and globalbusinessnews.net. This is the continuation of a new episode, a series of episodes about the look at the free trade agreements, so-called free trade, or just call them trade agreements, that are surfacing around the world, and in particular here in the Western Hemisphere, US, Canada, Mexico, and then in Latin America itself, there's several trade agreements already in work. We're going to focus in on the expansion of the middle classes across Latin America, directly resulting from the growth and organic development of businesses local across Mexico and Brazil and Chile and others. And with us is Felipe from Santiago, Chile. Felipe, I want to go to you and ask you quickly about, give us a general description about you, but also, if you can, keep that to 32 seconds or so. We're more interested really in about the Chilean economy. So why don't you do a couple of minutes about that, and then we'll circle back to you.
Yes, as I always say, this is Felipe Detwiller from felipedetwiller.com. I invite you all and all the audience to visit my website. There you can find out all my services and solutions that I can give as a strategy business consultant for corporate strategy and also business strategy. I have three main services. That is like a consultant, like a speaker in universities or companies regarding change management, leadership, and management directly, and also like an advisor in different business models regarding the industry. That's mainly that I do abroad in the economy, philosophy, psychology, and also to the business, all applied for decision making.
Great, thank you. So in general, how's things going? Coming out of the pandemic, is it recognizable growth now?
Yes, directly in Chile, we are living some of the more BUCA moments, very volatile, uncertainty, ambiguity.
VUCA. Yeah.
Yes, very BUCA or VUCA. Because we had election times, and as in a lot of years, that is not happening, that we have any certainty who gonna be the next president. And that's mean which kind of economic model or political model will be applied. So that has a direct impact in the abroad investment for foreign companies, impacting the relocation business too, because everything is under a standby mood. I mean, the companies has freeze all the investment. That means that we don't have more inbound relocations, and the decision in any case to perform outbound relocations from Chile, that is not confirmed, because it's not confirmed who's going to be the next president of Chile. Very weird. And always we have a trend of the preference. So nowadays we don't know what's going to happen in that case. And also we have some phenomena very interesting to comment regarding the GDP of Chile, because the Chilean economy has grown in usually an 18%, double points like China. That's because the low comparison terms on the previous year, 2020, the pandemic year, very low comparison rate, and also the government has gave a lot of bonds, and the parliament has voted for the release of the pension funds. The people can take the pension funds, and that's pressing an inflation to an excess of money circulating on the market. And the economy is growing, but in my opinion, that is just a bubble, because on next year, in some with the politic change, it could have some effects. And that kind of effects, I cannot say it's going to be something beneficial for the Chilean economy or something that going to make a kind of recession.
So let me ask you just a couple of questions just for the audience out there, which is quite diverse and broad, but all business oriented. So the biggest exports to me from Chile is red wine, but I'm sure there are other
Yes,
products. So tell me what they are. Okay, it's mining, right? And
yes.
also vegetables and fruits. I know we got some grapes in Trader Joe's, and it happens to say from Chile.
Yes, I
No,
know
no,
very well
no. Wait,
that.
that was the bottle of wine that was from Chile. No, I'm just joking.
Red wine. I hope you can enjoy it. Yes, yes, you're right, because Chile is worldwide known about his wine. That's part of the agricultural exports. So I have to say that Chile and the most of the South American countries, sadly I said, because they are mono exporting countries of raw materials, except Brazil in the region that is a huge manufacturing the economy. So in the case of Chile and the other smallest country, USA for Chile is the second trading partner after China. We import a lot from China, and we export for China mainly copper. Is a mining raw material. And in the case of the United States, we export a lot of agricultural raw materials. For that reasons, the Chilean grape is very known. And so manufactured the more add value product is the Chilean wine, world famous.
So the general population has some kind of a relationship with U.S. rather than just products, but it's not well known, frankly. So would you like to discuss how people can relate better together? I mean, this is a great way right now today, and we'll make sure everybody in the world knows who you are. But what about more common communications? How do you think that should work?
I guess the main issue that the Chilean population have to pass is the language barrier, because not everybody speaks English in Chile than in Mexico, because in Mexico the half of professionals are English speakers, and that's very good because of the closest of those both markets. In the case of Chile, we are very isolated at the end of South America, with a world, a great natural world that is the Andes Mountains, and the northern part of Chile is isolated by a big desert, the Atacama Desert, very wide region. So we are a sort of island, isolated with the globalized faults regarding the communication, and the English language is a barrier for a lot of professionals here. That's the first issue that separates the American culture and the American business with the United States. And also we are, in other part, like a contradiction, we are the most open economy in the world. We are the country with the most number of free trade agreements in the world, because our economy from the decade of 1918 has been open, a difference of other countries in the region that are trying to manufacturing or close their economy to create their own products. And that is my first impression of an improvement opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much for that. KK, I want to go to you and give us an overview of your management experience in Mexico and Latin America, and then those details that you did compile and send are really illuminating about the value and the strength and the growth of the Mexican middle class. Could you please get into some detail on that?
Yeah, sure. Very briefly, I've spent all my life in consumer products, marketing and sales in two big corporations, Unilever and SC Johnson. So that's my corporate background. I've traveled to Latin America many times in my several responsibilities as global head of pest control business for SC Johnson, as well as in global sales SC Johnson. So I'm fairly familiar with all the countries, but I don't have deep experience like Felipe has or Rigoberto has in respective countries. When it comes to Mexico, what strikes me about Mexico is the demographics of the country. It's very interesting. 51% of the population are below the age of 29. And 90% of the population is below the age of 90. Just these two statistics should tell you something about the potential for the country. I would call it, it's a very young country. And the other interesting part about Mexico is the percentage of women outnumber the percentage of men. I think it's a couple of points, which is quite dramatic, quite honestly, on a population base of 131 million. The third statistic that I want to point to talk about the potential of Mexico is, if you look at PPP GDP per capita, I don't look at nominal GDP because that is never configured for parity purchasing power. I think it makes a lot more sense to look at the PPP number. The GDP per capita PPP for Mexico is $20,266 US. Let's look at how does it compare with another large country in Latin America, Brazil. It's 33% higher than Brazil. And it is 12% higher than China. Can you believe it? Nobody ever thinks that Mexico GDP PPP will be higher than China because the public impression about China, because of the large population and the press that it gets, is unbelievable. And Mexico is 3 times India in terms of PPP, which is huge. India outnumbers Mexico 10 times in population, but its GDP per capita PPP is only 1/3 of Mexico.
So that means higher productivity per person.
Yeah, yeah. And Russia is about 29,000, which is the only country that I picked, which I thought for reference would give you some idea about where Mexico is actually on the ladder. So my big takeaway is Mexico has got huge economic potential, driven by demographics, driven by GDP, PPP per capita, driven by proximity to America, which is its largest trading partner. And even the retail format in Mexico mirrors a lot of what is happening in America, which was driven by the entry of Walmart in 1997 through a joint venture. The other thing about Mexico, Ed, is in terms of opportunity, Mexicans buy food products through 800 mom and pop stores, which is unbelievable. And their daily wage average is about $5. So you can imagine they make 286 trips a year to a mom and pop store to pick up whatever they need.
Now, is this relevant to the convenience store that I see everywhere?
Exactly.
OXXO, OXXO, or something like that?
Absolutely. OXXO is one of the premier convenience chains in the country, and it's been growing at a dramatic pace.
Now, you mentioned that there's about 800,000 of these small stores.
Yeah, those are mom and pop stores which don't come under the banner of OXXO. These are people who are eking out a living for themselves and their family.
I see.
The store in front of the house, and they probably reside just behind the store. You know,
and so that's a cash business that's very hard to understand what the tax flow would be.
Exactly.
Or
but some of
the
these
officials
guys
look the other way, perhaps.
Some of these guys even offer a small credit to their loyal clientele because they live in the neighborhood, they come and they pick up stuff. So maybe they will allow them to buy for a week, you know, buy what you need for a week, come back and then pay what you bought for the last week and then buy afresh. So there's a rolling 1 week credit. But the big point that I want to make is Mexico's economy is actually extremely well placed. I'm not talking about the government policies, but I'm just talking about the demographics and the way the DNA of the country is. I think it's geographical placement as a neighbor to America, huge dependence on America for imports and trade, and the internal engine of the Mexican demographics is going to propel it into a much bigger economy than it is today.
So what do you think of the trade agreement? Is that, I mean, NAFTA was always good, but it was just never really developed from a communications point of view here in the US. It was just sort of ignored. But now especially with Canada and the combination of the railroads from north central US through Kansas City, down to New Orleans, and then down through Texas into Mexico. That new combination of the railroads is huge economic impact. And it really hasn't kicked into gear. So what do you see happening relative to this new trade agreement between US, Canada, and Mexico?
You know, a disclaimer, I cannot profess to be an expert on this particular piece, but you alluded to a very, very important point, the railroad infrastructure, which is going to really propel hell of a lot of movement of goods. And I think the USMCA might just help that happen. Otherwise, when I look at the trade between America and Mexico, it's largely done through the road transport. But I think the rail transport has been heavily underutilized. So I think it's going to get a kick in the arm, not only for the industry, which is the rail industry, railroad industry, but I think it's also going to do a lot of good for both the Mexican consumer as well as the American consumer. So I think that's going to be a double whammy. There's no question about that.
Isn't that interesting? I want to shift, I want to come back, because Mark Nadich, you have hands-on experience, people management in Mexico and Latin America.
Yes, although I would say that like KK, it's not as recent as some of the experts on the panel. So I'll defer. I think one of the interesting questions as I was reading some of the information that was shared is, how does all this impact kind of in our current situation, still in the pandemic, the whole talent question? And I'd like to kind of propose that as maybe something for us to dig into. I know Stephen has a lot more expertise than I do today in that area. But the whole kind of change of, where people can work in different parts of the world, and there's different ways in which they can work. And one of the businesses that I'm involved in that Ed knows a lot about is a firm that does, kind of senior level placement of people for short-term consulting assignments. And we're seeing a huge increase in kind of that flow across the world. So I just was interested in kind of learning that on the kind of the basis of what KK said around the age groups of where that's going to go and how we need to think about that long term. So I don't have the answers as much as the questions, right?
So Rigo, with respect to immigration, inbound and outbound, right?
Yeah, correct. We are having a huge movement. And well, I was just hearing what KK just let us know about the transportation and how it's working, and I think it's super relevant as from an immigration perspective. Yes, we have a lot of movement, but also from an economic perspective, we depend a lot from China. And I think that's happened in Chile, that happens in the US and even in Mexico. But what is happening, economically speaking, is that now, let's say a sea freight from China to, let's say, Mexico or the US, probably in the US it will be more expensive, but in Mexico it's at least 10,000 USD, a sea freight for a small container. So that's super expensive. So the fact that we are having these railroad connections between the US and Mexico is definitely Paulo was saying, KK, at some point the economy, and having more free transit economically, immigration, and in several ways, definitely.
Mark, let's get back to the people aspect in your view backwards in pharmaceutical. Can you get into a little bit more detail about your experience there and what you see now?
Well, my experience on the international side, and specifically in Latin America, I think a couple things, and KK can speak to this as well, is, if you were, and I happen to not be an individual that was born and raised in Latin America, and one of the best learnings that I received is, the cultural piece of every country is so critical on how you're going to have success and how you drive that as a leader of maybe a larger enterprise where you might have 20 or 30 countries, or in the case of KK, when we were in developing markets, it was probably 75 or 70 countries, whatever. As a leader, from a leadership standpoint, having sensitivity to kind of how things get done in each country because of the culture should never be underestimated. And the criticality of understanding in a leadership role at a headquarters that, we used to call this, you have to have flexibility within a framework. So you have to have, for example, the strategies that you want to deploy, but they have to be deployed at a local level, just given even the things that we've talked about, that you're not going to do the same thing in Brazil as you are going to be in Argentina or Chile, or, you have to let that, and then you look at the geographics where you're talking about very large cities versus very, very small rural communities and how you deliver that. And as a leader in talent, and then looking at how you grow that talent in a larger enterprise, it's really important to understand the cultural connections. And I know that sounds so basic, but I think sometimes people forget how critical that is, because that's how you get the work done.
Even? Yeah, on the people side of things.
Yeah, Mark's right. But what's interesting is, and Roberto's well placed for this, is the number of Mexicans who are now becoming expatriates in the United States is growing. But also here, I've run into in the business community in Mexico City, Venezuelans. I mean, the head of Pepsi here in Mexico is a Venezuelan. Colombians, Chileans who are running businesses here as expatriates. It's phenomenal. So Mexico is really well set up as a regional center. And the other thing, a couple of things to add to what KK was saying about, and it's interesting, KK, the numbers you said. I moved to Singapore in 1980, and it was almost identical what you were talking about. In Asia, the population was under 30, majority population was even under 19, because the youth, the population boom was starting to happen. The GDP was starting to grow. I see Mexico in many ways as being much like Southeast Asia was in the early 1980s, and from an economic standpoint. A couple other things here, but that makes Mexico unique is it's not just Mexico City. I mean, Guadalajara is a big business center. Monterrey is a big business.
Oh, we lost. So Stephen, you froze up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. You hear me now? Yeah, it says it's unstable. Sorry. That's one of the downsides here in Mexico is the internet.
Yeah. So Monterrey is an automobile center, right?
Actually, Puebla is more so. Mercedes-Benz and Ford, and in fact, one of the Mercedes-Benz models that's being sold here in Mexico is designed in Mexico and it's manufactured in Mexico. Some of the Mercedes-Benz sold in the United States are actually manufactured and assembled here. So it's not just the cheap labor type manufacturing anymore. So Mexico's really developed in the last 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, and well, personally, I see an explosion of that. Rigoberto, everybody's friendly again between Washington and Mexico City. I mean, are you seeing that in the immigration side with things beginning to open up a lot more?
Yeah, I think they are reactivating because we really need that reactivation from a company perspective. However, it's been slow, and at the end, it all depends about the COVID vaccinations. Hopefully, there is a kind of bill that can be approved from Pfizer, who is going to be easier let's say, the access to both countries. But yeah, I think the next year, both economies, the U.S. and Mexico, are very eager to start trading again, and in some way, allow ourselves to send and let people in within the countries.
Yeah. So what do you think about the crime problem? The news is overblowing everything, but it seems like should I be afraid to cross the border?
Well, that's a difficult question, and I think it's probably in very specific places. Let's say the border, or even in the south of the country, there are very specific places that if you go there, for sure you will find issues. You will have problems, insecurity, and things like that. So I think what we typically say to all the people who is coming into Mexico is that basically you should guide yourself, but the community is telling you, and follow the advices. Fortunately, we're not in a position where security is everywhere. As I said, it's in very specific places. But I think at this point, I will definitely keep positive in the things that many people are looking for, the progressive things, and definitely, starting to create a new movement of people wanting to do better things.
So Joanne and I went on holiday in Cabo San Lucas, which is a resort area. We've been there 100 times, but we were just there over the Christmas time, and it was perfectly safe. It was absolutely zero problem, and nothing. So Stephen, you've recently relocated from Southern California into Mexico City. Have you been afraid to walk outside and go places?
No, I mean, like any major cities, there's places you wouldn't go. I mean, listen,
Right.
There's a place in Detroit I wouldn't go. There's a place in New York City I wouldn't go. So, no, I think, there there is a crime issue in some parts of the country, but you can avoid those. And one of the, talking about what KK was saying in terms of manufacturing thing, I think one of the advantages Mexico has is that you just alluded to, Ed, is a big tourism industry. I mean, that's one of its advantages to being so close to the United States. Cancun, Mexico City itself, Ixtapa, Huatulco, Cabo San Lucas, Puerto Vallarta, drawing in huge numbers of American tourists. Once the borders have opened, the flights are back, we're getting inundated with tourists again, which is good for the overall economy.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so now, KK, back to you. In your experience, will there, in your view, will there be more immigration into Mexico from China or Taipei or from Spain?
It's a very interesting question, right? I mean, the third country that you named at least has language familiarity, which is Spanish. When I think about China and Taipei, for them, Spanish is going to be a barrier as much as it is for someone like me to think about immigrating to China or Taipei, because there are different kinds of, Mandarin is spoken in multiple different ways. There are multiple dialects. And Shanghainese don't understand the Hong Kong Mandarin and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of variety. So I would, in terms of trade, probably relationship between China and Mexico could keep growing, because China is constantly trying to be pretty aggressive in terms of trade patterns with other countries. So Taipei, they have an issue with Taipei, as you know. I'm not going to talk about politics, but that's not their attention is on Taipei for a different reason right now. And therefore, what I would say is that immigration from Mexico to Spain probably is definitely there, because I know some friends who migrated. I think people from Spain would probably go to Mexico, not in terms of immigration, but in terms of job opportunities, if they can add some value. For them, it will be a lot easier because they will be very, very comfortable with the Spanish language. but I would be very hesitant about people immigration from China, Taipei to Mexico. But partnerships, of course, hell of a lot.
Yeah. So let's talk about the competition, if you will, between Mexico City and Sao Paulo as business hubs for the region. Can you address that, everybody? We'll start with KK.
You know, Sao Paulo and Mexico City are a very interesting comparison because both are business centers in their own right in the respective countries. In addition, they are regarded to be international business centers by other countries as well. So anybody who's got to deal with Brazil has to deal with Sao Paulo. Anyone who's got to deal with Mexico has to deal with Mexico City. So there is a lot of similarity. It's got a lot of vibrancy. It's got a lot of people power. It's got a lot of manufacturing. And the commercial engine of both the countries is definitely centered around that. I would say that they are pretty big drivers of commerce in both the countries. In terms of crime, regrettably, they are companions as well. Because I can remember that whenever I used to go to Sao Paulo, the flight American Airlines or United would land at 11 p.m. local time. And I would have a company car which would take me, of course, very safely. But the chauffeur will always insist that I sit next to him in the front seat and never in the back seat. I asked him why. He says, it's for your security. I'm telling you, you should sit by my side. That has never happened to me in Mexico. So I don't know whether based on this little incident, I can tell you that Mexico has got less crime than Sao Paulo. But I've landed in Mexico late in the night, but I've always sat in the rear seat. So in terms of crime, I think there is some similarity. The extent of crime, I'm not qualified enough to comment on that.
Felipe, would you like to comment?
Sure, very interesting. I had the opportunity to work at Sao Paulo 1 year up to 2008, and I lived the some recommendations from local people. Be aware of your environment was the statement every day. So it's interesting the cooperation between Sao Paulo and Mexico, because from the view of the Chilean businessman, we have two very successful cases of startups that are Chilean and has arrived to Mexico with a lot of success. I don't know, have you ever listened about NotCo? NotCo, do you listen? It's a substitute of meat protein, and they have created, they are Chilean. I'm proud to suggest this with you all, because they are replaced the meat protein with burgers from vegetal origin. And they have not burger, not milk, and not mayonnaise. And they has arrived to the Mexican market with a lot. I don't know, Rigo, have you ever listened about NotCo? No. Okay. And the another company is a company that is called, very bad, I don't remember now, but Rigo, can you help me? It's a company that the guys via an app made the shopping in the supermarkets by themselves, and they take to your home. Oh,
Mercado Libre, I guess.
no, it's not Mercado Libre. It's something like shop, but they are Chilean. They start the minimum valuable product in Chile. So the bad stuff in Chile, we had a very small market in comparison with Mexico, and always for all business and entrepreneurs from Chile and from the region to arrive at Mexico is a huge opportunity, because it's the same proportion of the huge volume of the market, and it's the previous level to get in the United States. And in comparison with Sao Paulo, we have the language barrier, because in Sao Paulo you have to speak Portuguese, and it's a different culture. As Mark said, we are all together in the same region. From Mexico to Chile is a huge region. So in South America, as Mark said, you cannot compare an Argentinian with a Chilean and a Peruvian with a Brazilian, because there are very different cultures mixed in a small part of geography. So in conclusion, I can say that Mexico is the next level for South American entrepreneurs and business.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
So very interestingly, in 2008, my company produced a live conference on global HR and global mobility in Sao Paulo. And our local partner was PwC, and they hosted us, and they invited clients and so on. And then the next year, we did a meeting in Rio, which was, of course, energy oriented. And although in the same country and a couple of 100 miles away, I got to tell you, it was like LA and Boston, or northern North Dakota and South Texas. It was like, whoa, it was way different environment and business practices and ways of doing things. Mark, in your experience, and what in the past people experience in Mexico, Latin America, and looking at what you could be doing in the future about executive search in the LATAM region, what do you think?
Well, it's a great question. I think one of the things that a lot of organizations are grappling with, and it's not just in the United States, I think it's all over, is because of the pandemic, how people are kind of resetting things in their own lives that, when I was growing up, you tended to move around quite a bit in your career. Okay. And so, with what has gone on the last couple of years, part of what we're seeing is individuals that are saying, I'm not going to do that. And are you going to, is there a way for me to maybe do this work differently? Right. And I could still be a leader, an executive leader. I work with a company right now, and their entire staff is spread out across North America. There's not one person in the same city. And they get together and they do what we're doing right now, but then they have their meetings where they do it. And so I think it's a very interesting point around kind of what people want in terms of career pathing and how that was maybe 20, 30 years ago when KK and I were in our careers and others, and how that is looking today. It's a very interesting model. And I think it's going to actually open up more opportunities for people in the end. But it's very different as to how it was, like I said, even a few years ago.
So we're going to wrap this in about 6 or 7 minutes. And before we get to the end, I'd like everybody to look on the bottom there that says chat and go in there and go to the everyone and type in your website, your email, so everybody can exchange this information. And because the idea, the takeaway, the ROI for you guys is to have a relationship that you didn't have yesterday. And then I'm a winner. So, Stephen, getting good managers to become great leaders, that's your calling these days, right?
It is indeed. And that's one of the reasons I moved to Mexico, quite frankly. As I alluded to earlier, I see Mexico and then Latin America really where Asia was when I moved to Asia in 1980, is at the cusp. It's like a dry sponge, the desire to learn knowledge, to learn from outsiders. It used to be very parochial, but now the willingness to learn from others is huge. I see a great opportunity here. I also would say, we were talking Nutco and others. Interestingly, here in Mexico is becoming such a big hub. The number one food delivery service here is not Uber Eats. It's called Rappi, which is a company from Colombia. So what we're seeing here is Latin American entrepreneurs who are building businesses in their own country. As they expand, Mexico is one of their top markets. So for your audience in North America or the United States, I should say, or Canada, you better get off your horse and get down here quickly, because like I said, Uber Eats is number 2 or number 3 to this Colombian company. And that's kind of shocking.
So I want to invite you guys to come back on this series of Latin America and Mexico, trade agreements, expansion of the middle classes. Let's continue this thread if we can. Our next event will be December 15, same time, 12 noon, Mexico City. And then look ahead to January 14, a Friday. January 14, same thing. Does that sound okay to you guys? And have a track to run on that's build an audience for everybody. And it's okay if we have more people. I was expecting a couple of very beautiful women to join us so that the screen would look better, but they chickened out, I think.
We scared them off.
So thank you very much. Gracias, amigo.
Gracias.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Yeah.
Gracias.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.